Back on the air, streaming not live all the time on the internet. That's Radio Entrepreneurs. Our favorite topic is entrepreneurship. My name is Jeffrey Davis. We're being hosted through all these wonderful segments by the great law firm of Davis Malm, and that means we're with Pat Clendenin as my co-host.
Jeffrey, always a pleasure to see you. Thank
you,
for
Pat.
being here.
We're going to be talking with Greg Vasil. Is that correct?
Vasil,
sorry, of the Greater Boston Real Estate Board. Man, you must be the world's greatest juggler. Listen, must be a tough job. How do you get into your job? I mean, what's your background?
My background actually is an attorney. I was an environmental lawyer. I practiced for just under 15 years. I worked for the Department of Environmental Protection, so sort of my specialty was environmental policy regulation. The last 4 years of my working for the Commonwealth, I was in charge of the state's white-collar environmental crimes unit. So we basically would prosecute environmental crimes. And then I really liked real estate, so I decided when I finally grew up, I needed someplace to go. And I sort of looked at the law firm life, but it wasn't really the right fit for me. So I went over to Mass Development, who at the time was doing a lot of work out at the old Army base at Fort Devens. They had a lot of environmental issues. I had a lot of interest in sort of getting involved in the business side of real estate. So we had a meeting of the minds, came together. They sent me back to school to take a lot of classes on the business side of things, and I worked on some of their environmental issues out at Devens on Route 2. And then after about 5 years there, my last project I worked on for them was the old Salt and Stall building, 100 Cambridge Street. I went over to the real estate board to be in charge of government affairs. And then lo and behold, 6 months later, I found myself being the CEO.
So I'm fascinated with the trade association aspect of Greater Boston Real Estate Board. And I'm vice chair of the business law section of the ABA, which is another trade association and you have so many different constituent groups. How do you accommodate, and what are your goals for the organization generally?
It's an interesting question that you raise because we sort of view ourselves almost like the United Nations because we do have residential and commercial under one roof. And that includes residential in terms of rental, development. So we sometimes have the ebb and flow between, the goal is to buy. Oh, no, the goal is to lease. So
you're like the United Nations because even in residential, you have different
factions,
economics, and then you have commercial, and there's only so much space again.
And on the residential rental side,
are you sort of like no good deed goes unpunished?
Basically, there's a lot of negotiation and discussion and process. So the job is extremely political in that there's a lot of process, like at the State House, getting people together, talking about issues, trying to find common ground, and then trying to, especially in today's world, identifying the leaders of tomorrow that really will take the time and invest. So many people today just don't have the time between their family lives and their work jobs. Getting them to spend the time and make the commitment to the organization isn't easy, but we do have some real dedicated people that allow us to be successful in what we do.
Right, and so you focus on education and building best practices in the industry and advocating in the State House and locally, and I think that's really important because you're basically trying to help your organization, all the constituent parts, self-police.
Right. I mean, we've done that both, at the gubernatorial level with Charlie Baker's team, and then also at the city level with the transition from the Menino administration to Mayor Walsh. I served on his transition team for housing. So you build those relationships sort of at the start, and they can pay dividends down the road for the organization.
What are the biggest factors that keep you up at night?
Honestly, it's internal governance. We've got tremendous leaders that focus on the big picture, the big policy. And having been a member of the Boston Bar Association myself and being very active there, I would let the staff sort of do their thing and try to focus on the big picture stuff because that's why you belong to a trade association. Every once in a while, we get these sort of crazy issues like, geez, we are spending a lot of money on paper clips, like mundane stuff. It's like, guys, do you really want to focus on this, or do you really want to focus on, where should we go in housing policy? How do we meet the needs of a growing middle class so that employers have places that their employees can work?
Right. That's an
you know,
important issue.
That's the big stuff. I mean, so you know, and sometimes folks can get sidetracked on the little minutia instead of looking at the bigger picture, which is really where the fun is for the people in the organization.